We're going to go ahead and call this City of Gallatin Council Committee meeting of June 14, 2022 to order. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Fennell.
Here.
Councilman Alexander.
Here.
Councilman Fan is absent. Councilwoman George.
Here.
Councilman Hayes.
Present.
Councilwoman Love.
Here.
And Councilman Overton is also absent, but we do have a quorum.
Thank you. And this time, I don't think we have any minutes for approval tonight, so we'll move on to public recognition. If anybody'd like to speak tonight, please come up to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Did you want to do the fishing team first, or did you want us to start? It's your choice.
Matter.
I think there's a lot of people here to
Yeah,
speak.
let's do if y'all want to, that'd be great. Paige, are you going to do the presentation for the fishing team? Let's do that first.
You folks got a break. So fishing team, if you guys want to come up to the podium with me, as I told you as a group, parents, you all are welcome to come forward. We'll also have Jeff Henschel take a photo for us, but they can certainly take pictures as well. So council, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Gallatin High School fishing team, in case you hadn't guessed that. And I'm so excited. They have received some tremendous honors. And so the city of Gallatin is presenting them this evening with a proclamation. So I'm going to read the proclamation, and then we'll all appropriately recognize them and take a picture, and you can leave. So this says, whereas Gallatin High School fishing teams participated in the state championship tournament on June 4th and 5th in Paris, Tennessee, and whereas Gallatin High School was awarded the Commissioner's Cup for top school in the state out of 174 schools, and whereas 2 Gallatin fishing teams finished in the top 10 of the state out of the 430 teams, they qualified to compete at the national championship at Lake Hartwell in South Carolina against the best anglers in the country. This is the first time an individual team has qualified 2 years in a row, and the first time that Gallatin High School teams have had 2 in the same year qualify. And whereas the Gallatin junior team also finished with high honors in second place in the state of Tennessee, and whereas the city of Gallatin congratulates all of the anglers, and as I read your name, if you'll raise your hand, Drew Bowers, Grant Bruce, Jamison Conyer, Caden Cardoza, Dylan Freeman, Tyler Johnson, Cameron Johnson, Jacob Johnson, Zach Knight, Bryce Lumpkins, Wade McNabb, Maddox Mooney, Colton Myers, Aiden Perry, Lane Roddy, Gabby Schrum, Gage Schrum, Eli Stiles, Austin, how do you say the last name? Vile? Okay, Austin Vile, Peter West, Dylan Willett, Logan Williams, and boat captains Jamie Conyer, Teddy Cardoza, Shane Johnson, Jerry Leggett, okay, Michael McNabb, Jake Myers, Aiden Perry, Greg Roddy, Billy Schrum, David West, Donald Wims, Harrison Wims, and coaches Rebecca Myers and Lloyd Smith. The city is so proud of the Gallatin High School fishing teams for their tremendous achievements. Now, therefore, I, Paige Brown, Mayor of the City of Gallatin, to hereby honor and recognize all of the members on the Gallatin High School fishing team and ask citizens to join in celebrating this special moment in which Gallatin has been put on the map in terms of the sport of high school fishing. So congratulations, you all, and we can't wait to recognize those teams again when you win the Nationals, all right? With that, I'm going to give you each one.
Need to have 5 in the back and 5 in the front. Be perfect. Tall. Yeah, the 5 tall ones in the back and the 5 short ones in the front. Would make sense.
Craig, I didn't want them sitting here all night. This looks like a full room tonight. I've been here many times, and y'all know how it can go. I'm Brad Jolly, 236 Woodlake Drive. I'm here tonight to talk to you a little bit about the traffic signal on Goodview, Greenlee, and Harris Lane. I'm one of the developers of that subdivision. We have, all of our businesses are up and running at this point, and I just want to give some folks kind of how this works in general. In 2018, I brought this project to Gallatin. And part of bringing this project to Gallatin, part of the thing that's required is a study. As everybody knows, this city loves a study. So we had to do a traffic study before we ever got approvals, and we did that. And part of that study, it shows when a warrant is going to be met for a traffic signal. And so we have been working with that now for 4 years. We have a daycare that's open with over 160 kids, fitness centers, chiropractors, all kinds of stuff. They're represented behind me, and they would love to talk to you also tonight for just a brief moment. But I just wanted to let you guys know that we have pushed and pushed and pushed for a traffic signal at that location. This does not cost the city a penny. The developer that's responsible for doing that has already put the money up for that traffic signal. I personally paid for the traffic study myself. I asked several times in our engineering department to have the traffic study done, which would force that developer to do it, but I never was successful with that. I paid for the traffic study. No problem with that. Traffic study came back, and it warrants a light. At this point, here is the signal warrant that has been signed off by our engineering department, along with the traffic itself, the traffic light itself. And I'll give these both to Ms. Connie here. So those were signed off in February. We're here in June, and we still don't have a developer that has been told when that light has to be installed. So our concern is the safety of the people at that intersection. That's our main concern. We've already had multiple accidents at that intersection. I've also got a couple pictures of a couple of the accidents that have happened, so I'll give those to you. Y'all can see the accidents. There has been an injury accident at that intersection. So our concern here tonight is just simply the safety of the people using not only Greenlee Commons, but coming in and out of Harris Lane. There's a coffee shop over there. There's lots of apartments over there. People are using that to cut through now because there's a light on Gallatin Road at this point. So we're here tonight to ask the council to move our engineering department forward with having the developer a timeline on when they need to have that light up. That is our main concern tonight. I've had everything from emails from the engineering department. I've got one right here that's actually to Mayor Brown. And it's from Nick Tuttle, and it talks about over the past couple of years, Brad Jolly has asked multiple times when the traffic signal will be installed. I have. I've pushed for the safety of the people here. On multiple occasions, we told Brad Jolly, this traffic signal will not be allowed and installed until traffic signal warrants. Those have been met. We clearly have those met. It goes on to say things that really, it doesn't matter at this point, but the bottom line is we're just here to talk about the safety of everybody coming in and out of that intersection. And I'd just like for you to hear the other folks that are here with me. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Jolly, I just have a question, because when we met, you said you were going to go ahead and proceed with putting it up and work with
Sure.
other developer to do it, so I don't understand.
I'm glad you asked
the
that.
issue.
So you and I, Devin Sutherland, and the engineering department met back in February. So you actually sent an email to Nick Tuttle. I actually have that email because you copied me on it. And you just asked him, what's the holdup? Why are we waiting? And that was the email that he sent back to you about me asking and having to have this
Yeah,
and
and we
that.
met after that.
We did. So we have that. And so the developer that's responsible for putting that light up is Paul Curd, Samantha Curd, and Henry Genie. They are the developer that put the mini storage in.
Right, we talked
And,
about
and
that.
they're responsible for the road and the light. So once we got the go-ahead from the engineering department, we contacted Henry Genie, and he asked us to get 3 bids on his behalf. Devin Sutherland did that. He got those 3 bids, he sent those to Henry Genie, and Henry Genie seemed okay with them. They're higher than,
Let's-
I'm gonna tell you, I'm getting there.
Let's keep people out of it, just because I don't.
Well, you asked
They're
me.
not he- They're not really
You
here.
yourself just asked me why, so it's impossible for me
But
to
you-
tell you
we
why
can
without
use-
giving you the name.
You don't need
So-
back and forth, but.
Okay, so
go
with that being said, those people met with you 2 weeks ago at the engineering department. When they left there, they called me and told me that after they met with you, that at this point, they're not being forced to do the light.
That's your time, but I've been talking, so it's not
Okay.
really your time.
So after they met with you, Mayor, that's when they came out and said that they do not have to put the light up at this time.
But that, I mean, that is the engineering's guidance
You were in
on
that
them.
meeting, Mayor.
I understand, but I don't, I mean, per our engineering department, it was warranted, but I don't think it's urgently warranted.
Okay,
And we
so-
thought that
so
you were
I'm
gonna
glad you
do
give
it.
me a little extra time,
Yeah.
because you're supposed to run those departments. You're supposed to oversee this city and the safety of the citizens in it. And by you not directing that department when it has an overseeing that department,
Okay,
I
very
have
good,
a problem
Mr.
with
Jolly.
that.
I'm going to let the experts do what they are expert in. And it would be inappropriate for an elected official to say, force them when they are making professional judgments based on their engineering.
Mayor, they signed off on it on February the 22nd.
That's fine, that's fine. They say it is allowed, but
So-
I mean, we've got a stoplight we're waiting to put in at K
At
Row
this
Road.
point, I'm just asking the council to move it forward because that's the only shot we have at getting a light.
Hunter, and I live at 423 West Nickel Circle here in Gallatin. I'm the director at Keystone Child Care that is off of Greenlee Boulevard. And I just would really ask that y'all would rush and get us a light, because I do have 160 children at that center that are coming and going with their parents and grandparents at least 2 times a day. Their ages 6 weeks through 5 years, and their little lives are very important to me. I have 42 staff that are coming in and out at least 4 times a day with counting their breaks. So I just would really ask that you guys could maybe rush this. So I have had a staff that got in a wreck leaving work, trying to turn left. So I think it is definitely a necessity. Thanks.
My name is Erica Clark, and I live at 107 Oakland Drive here in Gallatin, and I'm one of the owners of the Boulevard Salon and Spa located at Greenlee Commons. I have 28 individual salon suites that are all leased out to tenants as well as their clients that are coming in and out of the building all day long. As a business owner, I'm concerned for not only my tenants, but I'm a mother of 4 young children. So when we're driving in and out of the shopping center, it's nerve-wracking to turn left, go straight, as well as coming in and out in those opposite directions. So for us, it's extremely important to get this pushed through, not only for our employees, the clients, but as well as me and my family and our safety as well. So thank you very much.
My name is Wendy Scowden, and I live at 540 Cali Avenue. I'm representing Goodview Storage, which is at the end of Goodview Way. And I appreciate you all listening to our plea for this traffic light. All of us have trouble getting in and out. I think a lot of the children. Right now, we have a lot of construction going in. We're having an autism center right next to Goodview Storage. That means more people are going to be coming in and out. So I wish that you'd really consider this. Talk to the engineering department. Let's get this going. We don't want anybody else having an accident there. Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. Nick, it seems like we're going to get this saved. What is the status of this? Nick Tuttle.
This is our city engineer.
I didn't mean to cut any of you guys off.
Guilty
but
party, I guess.
It's gonna be
right?
the,
Yeah, mostly facts have been submitted to you tonight. The traffic signal, we've had a warrant study that's been completed by Mr. Jolly. And the way that it stated was that it would meet minimum warrant requirements when 50% of the development was built. And we're just now getting to 50% of this little Goodview Way area built out. So we've gotten to that point. We have made the responsible party aware of the traffic signal, but as it's already been mentioned, we haven't given them a deadline or a timeline. It meets the minimum warrants, but it's not.
I mean, we're gonna be there no matter what. Let's put the lighting in.
It will.
Here's the thing, and before Nick goes on, Nick and I've talked probably 3 times a day about this, but, and he, he agrees, yes, it's 50% there. They've got, I think, a convenience store coming.
There's a couple of things that are under construction
They're probably
now,
waiting to
and they're
come till the
still.
light gets there and all that stuff, but we've talked about it. And what I think we need to do is go ahead and say, okay, yes, let's do it, because by the time they get the light ordered, it's gonna be a year before it gets in. So I say what we do is give the developer 1 year to get the light into the place.
Will it take that long, Nick?
I think it will, don't you?
Is that all right, Brad?
Yeah, the lead time on
Taking a
on
lot longer
poles
than
are.
that for K-Row
Right.
Road.
Yeah, it's taking a while to get
They've
mast
already
arms and
got
everything like that.
this one
so.
designed, and as Mr. Jolly has said, as I understand, I've not seen the quotes, but they have bid it out or received quotes, and so I think they're ready to get under contract.
If they'll do it
and
under
they
contract,
can,
yeah.
we're not telling them not to. I want you to understand that the city is not standing in the way of this traffic signal from going up. We've given permission, we've signed off on construction plans, and we're completely fine with it going up. We just haven't set a deadline at this point in time.
Well, let's do this so we can move it along.
What do you think? Do
That's
you
all we
have
need.
an opinion on what an appropriate deadline is?
Up to 2 years is fair. If you wanted to accelerate it, then that is okay too. 1 to 2 years, I think, is appropriate.
What, with our K-Row Road signal that we put in, what's been the lead time on the mast arms and the?
So it's out to bid right now. June 24th is when we open that bid. But what we're hearing on other projects is that lead time is in the 6-month range for the arms themselves, which is the worst item that we've seen. Now,
A year would be reasonable.
a year, is
Oh,
absolutely,
we
no,
voted on
no
K-Row
problem.
roads.
If they get under contract with a signal contractor, we'll say next week, I would expect it, probably 8 months from now.
Well, let's do what we need to do to get the ball rolling on that one.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we do what we need to do to get it going.
I'll second it.
For how long?
He
Deadline.
said about 8 months.
Well, we said a year.
Mr. Alexander, can you,
I'm sorry.
they probably need a little bit more direction, other than do what we need to do. Why don't y'all set a deadline
Yeah.
so that Mr. Tuttle can
Okay,
convey that?
8 months to a year. Is that reasonable, Nick?
So I can draft a letter to be sent to the developer to require that it be installed within a year of
Okay.
whenever the letter is sent out.
Okay.
Now, we have a letter of credit, so if they do not perform in that time, then what we would have to do is come back to the planning commission, let them know that the council made this directive, this has not been put up, and we would have to make a demand on that letter of credit, which, would take some time, but
Okay. So we're saying 8 months, 8 to 12 months.
He's going to say a year, is what he's going to say.
Okay.
we'll just say a deadline of a year.
What's that?
Whatever the motion is.
The motion-
You make the motion.
My motion is from 8 months to 12 months to have this light installed.
And my second stands.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that?
Is that reasonable? Are we saying 8 months to a year, and that's doable? Or is that something that we're gonna have to come back and say, well, not all of the pieces are able
Well,
to be installed?
I would think that if there were some issue that whomever, Mr. Tuttle or the developer could come and say, hey, we've got this, or, if there were, it's like we would do with most things. If there's some issue that they can't meet that, but if they make their best effort to meet that,
I think you'd work with them on the.
course.
On the
Well,
letter
and
of credit
again,
or whatever their surety is.
you know, I don't have the authority to make a demand. I would have to bring it back to the planning commission, and they would have to listen to
Whatever.
the story, the
Argument, yeah.
pleas.
Can we get the letter out for engineering this week?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we can.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Good afternoon. My name is Zach Ghazi. I live at 124 Bush Avenue. I work for Gallatin Public Utilities Water Department, and I've been a employee for 6 years at the end of this month. Us as employees for the City of Gallatin Public Utilities, we have some current concerns regarding the pay study. We would like to know more information about the pay study before a agreement is met with you guys. We would also like for y'all to consider the cost of living in Gallatin right now. I live at 124 Bush Avenue, and me living by myself, and I cannot speak for everybody else, but if I was living there by myself, I could not afford to live in Gallatin. I moved to Gallatin because I wanted to further my career in the city, and we would like to know more information, and we would like you guys to please consider, you know, the cost of living, how expensive it is, like I said. Number two is we would like the city council to possibly restructure the hourly rate in regards to working on a scheduled paid holiday. I just recently started taking call this year since I moved to the city of Gallatin, and it is very hard sometimes to get men to come in on Christmas and Thanksgiving. That is a time where you spend time with family you haven't seen in months. Kids opening presents, you know, spending time with your family, dinner, stuff like that. Having to come in, we are not obligated to come in. So like I said, it is very hard, except for the man on call, he is obligated, to get people to come in. And we feel like it needs to be a little bit more enticing if you guys could consider that. I know that right now, to come in, we have to make up 8 hours of straight time to make up for that paid holiday. Instead of that, maybe consider doing the pay a little bit different and doing it to where we get time and a half from the time we clock in to the time we get done, rather than having to spend 8 hours getting paid straight time. That would make it more enticing and more easier, a lot less easier to get employees to come in and work on those holidays. Like I said, you know, it takes time away from their families, you know, their kids and stuff like that on holidays that mean something. We spoke to Mr. Kellogg about that today, our department head. And so we've already let him know, you know, about some of our concerns, stuff like that. But that, we would like you guys to consider both of those things, please. We would love to, it would also entice, you know, people who don't work at the city to come and work at the city. I know sometimes, right now, we've got a problem with open positions. And maybe a little bit of restructuring there may help that case a little bit. We thank you guys for the dedication you put in daily to better the city of Gallatin, and that is sincerely from the employees of City of Gallatin Public Utilities. We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate your thoughtful suggestions. I also really appreciate you talking to Mr. Kellogg about them before talking to us.
Can you see me?
Of course.
My name's Kenny Neely, and I'm here representing Chandler Real Estate. We own Chandler Park Apartments that y'all just talked about. I came here tonight to tell you how we have been treated by the city of Gallatin very well since we've been here. We develop in a lot of cities around the country, and it always gets into zoning issues, always gets into traffic lights and all kinds of problems. As the mayor had said, there's always something that comes up. But we just wanted to, I was coming tonight to talk to you about putting a deadline on this light, because we're putting money into that light also. It's very important. We've got almost 800 people out there right now, living out there. We're getting ready to have a lot more. The demand here has been fantastic in Gallatin area, and we've got 266 units, I think, more to build. We have already been with planning and zoning on the commercial frontage there on Harris and Greenlee. We have several developers that are wanting to come in and build out restaurants and hotels. Hotels, as a matter of fact, we're building that, and as per the planning and zoning, asked us to do that, to make sure they had a hotel there. We build hotels and we manage our own hotels. So we are going to start pushing dirt on that very quickly. The traffic light is all important to not only the safety, but also to attract other users. So I just want to tell you that we really appreciate the help planning and zoning has been. Mayor, you've been with our other representatives and have been very helpful. We've got a lot of money at risk out there, and we're going to spend a lot more. So thank you very much for making this move tonight to bring the developer. And I would assume we're part of that developer because we're going to pay for part of that light. So we'd like to give the money out as quick as we can. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your compliments of our development departments. They certainly do deserve it because they work very hard.
You've been great to work with. I always have conflicts with developers and city councils and planning and zoning people, but we've found in most of the cities we go to, you try to work together and find a, and you know, if one side is saying you got to do this and got to do that, then you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to get a bad development. We think we've got a good development out there. We're going to make it even better. So thank you, Mayor, and all the council people for what you have made this city is going to boom, already booming, but we're glad to be part of it.
Well, it's really meaningful hearing from you because you have other cities to compare us to, and I think that really bolsters them when they're doing the work that they're doing.
Yeah, and we don't want to get between developers.
You know what it's like in other cities, and you can say these
We
folks
don't want to
are
get
doing a
between
good job.
developers and politicians and everybody else. We just want to do what we're told to do, and what we say we're going to do, and we will do that. So if you ever have any questions about anything we're doing, you know, your people know how to get a hold of us. So thank you very much for your vote tonight. Appreciate it.
Pascal Javans, 1335 Longolo Park. Good evening, all. Councilman Hayes, you're running the meeting, so I'm going to address you. I'm kind of confused here now. Since that meeting starting, I'm glad these people got answers and something was done, but a lot of time we have been coming there, people have asked questions, and the answer we had was, it's public comments, we are not answering your questions. So what it is, can you answer a question or can't? And there was a motion passed on public comment, so I'm kind of surprised too. I don't know if, you know, again, I'm glad these people got an answer, but I think it's time to get the same thing for everybody. That means if we ask question on public comment, you answer the question or you don't. But if you say some people, we're not going to answer your question because we can't, that need to apply to everybody. Coming to that, I always wonder why on council committee there was only one public comment. So I went to my favorite book when I have time, The Charters of Gallatin. And I went to the chapter about council committees, section 271. And down there, paragraph F, he said, when public comments are allowed as council committee meetings, the guidelines set forth in section 2-92 of the municipal code regarding public comment shall control at council committee meetings, and such guidelines are specifically incorporated herein. If I pull the section in question, section 292, order of business, and there is call to order, roll call, approval of minutes of previous meetings, recognition of public on agenda-related matters first, and down the line, there is recognition of public on non-agenda-related matters. So, again, are we following the code or not? Why is there only one public comment on committee meetings? So maybe I can get an answer tonight because you guys answering everybody.
I don't really understand your question because we allow comment on anything that's on the agenda or anything else.
But that doesn't matter. There should be two public comment. There should be a public comment on agenda and a public comment on non-agenda.
What's the difference in combining them?
Time.
I think you're getting a little picky there.
I do too. I
I'm
mean, it's
not.
just, I think it's getting a little nitpicky myself, but yeah.
No, it's not. There are rules. We follow the rules or we don't. But the rules are black and white. You should follow the rules. You can laugh, Mayor. You know, you can laugh at it, but it's black and white.
Understand what's the difference in having a comment over everything versus separating it into two different areas?
Because people maybe have different stuff they want to talk about, and they can come twice and separate what they want to talk about. But again, if it's the rule of the city, it's black and white in a chapter, that should be followed. I know you guys have been used to do whatever you want, plus or minus, but that's not the point.
I think probably at some point in the past, I mean, I've been coming to these meetings for 15, 20 years, and it's always been done that way. I think probably at some point in the past, somebody that was on the council, and I'm just speculating here, probably said, well, this makes no sense. Why do we just not allow public comment in general for a committee meeting? Why would we have two? And they made a change somewhere along the way. I mean, that's my guess, because, I mean, we allow people to comment on anything at the beginning of the meeting for work sessions, and then we allow comment on agenda-related items at the beginning of the meeting and non-agenda-related items at the end of the meeting at our regular council meetings. I think what's important is that we allow public comment.
You have no choice.
That is not true.
That's a law. You have no
That
choice.
is not true.
Sorry.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be given.
I think we are, and I support that. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah.
And maybe the public recognition can come in at the end. Would that be agreeable?
That's not the point.
You want two?
That's how it's written in the chapters. So that should be followed. I know, again, that can make you smile, but doesn't matter.
I don't, I mean, I've tried to tell you where I think that probably generated. I mean, honestly, if you want to go through our charter, and Ms. Macaulay can talk about this, Bill McCord can talk about this, you're going to find things that have become entirely obsolete. That's why we're working on updating the code. That's why we're updating. And if you look at our code online, we have all these supplements. It's very difficult to read. And so we're trying to get all that stuff straightened out, but
Oh, I can read.
you can find lots of problems.
I know I don't speak good English, but I can read English.
Difficult to understand, yeah. So,
Anyway, I have a little more time because you chatted with me. Again, on a case study, last week a city employee came and asked why the case study was not available to the public. I would appreciate if we can get all the case study online so the public can look at it and not just 4 pages. I suppose there is more than 4 pages. Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Evening. My name's Alan Freiberger. I live at 1103 Berry Lane. And tonight I'm going to address agenda items 4 and 5, which has to do with the property that's right across the street from where I live. Back in October and November of 2021, the Planning Commission turned down the request for annexation by a 6-to-1 vote because there was a consensus among the commission members that the 187-acre property was not contiguous to the city. During the March 14th Planning Commission, that's of this year, Councilwoman Love asked if the annexation is contiguous. Mr. McCord said the project touches the city limits to the west and across Hartsville Pike. And I don't know if that was including possibly the annexation of the part of Hartsville Pike that would have made it contiguous. So, and I'll get back to that in a minute. And also at that meeting, Mr. Leith with Green LID Design stated that among other things, city zoning density is greater than the density allowed in the county. And it seems to me that that's the real reason why they want the city to annex the property, so that they would be able to have a higher number of homes on the property as opposed to getting county approval to build. On March 28th, the Planning Commission voted down this annexation request by a 3-2 vote. At this meeting, Vice Chair Harris said if the property is not annexed into the city would not have the right to determine how the land is developed. I guess that's the way he looks at it, but also a member of this council made the same statement to one of my neighbors, and this was before this council, this body is taking up this issue. Shortly after the March 28th meeting, I was surprised to see that the city council was taking this request up. A resolution, number R2204-40, which I believe was deferred back in April, stated that the property was substantially contiguous to the city and within the city of Gallatin urban growth boundary. My question is, what does substantial mean? Merriam-Webster defines substantial as considerable in quantity, significantly great. Based on this definition, I don't see the city as having any considerable quantity or significantly great connection to the property. According to the maps that I've been able to come up with, there is no part of the city that actually touches the property. Let me get back to where I was. If you look at the map on page 58 of the agenda, tonight's agenda, you will see where the city limit is shown. It's outlined in the light blue. This map is a poor representation of where the little sliver of land that touches Hartsville Pike from the industrial park is. It shows it right on Berry Lane. It's actually a few hundred yards to the west of it. So it's a poor representation of that, and it also shows where Gateway Drive is, which would be the west end. Without State Road 25's 5.5 acres, there is no part of the city that is contiguous to the 187-acre property. And with State Road 25's 5.5 acres, I still wouldn't consider this a substantially contiguous annexation as defined previously, as no other property surrounding the 187 acres is within the city limits. As for the development itself, there are 264 homes proposed on the 187 acres. That is equal to about 1.41 homes per acre, as the developer stated. As I did at the Planning Commission meeting, I don't know if this is common practice when developing property to use the full acreage and determine density, but it seems disingenuous to me, as 80 acres would be used for roads, right-of-ways, green or public spaces. Taking that 80 acres out of the equation, that makes it about 2.47 homes per acre. A slight difference of 1 home per acre. All of Berry Lane up to Lewis Jones Boulevard, including the vineyards, as it borders the west side of the property, and 2 properties on State Road 25 have about 136 homes on 396 acres. That works out to about 0.34 homes per acre, or 1 home on 2.9 acres, which coincidentally, that's about what I am. I'm on about 3 acres. It seems to me that if you want to keep the character of the neighborhood, that would be the goal you would work toward. I watched the council meeting of April 5th, and a citizen talked about the plan of service progress report and how, in his or her opinion, the city is understaffed in key areas to adequately address the plans of service for properties already annexed. Wow, that was quick. I'm almost done, Meg. Which included his or her property, which was stated to have been annexed in 2008. If that is the case, then how can the new developments have their plans of service met in a timely manner? I and most of my neighbors in the Berry Lane corridor believe that the property owner has the right to develop his property, but when the Planning Commission voted down the request due to contiguous to the city issue, and that appears the city is hard-pressed to meet its current and past commitments for the plans of service, I think it would be a bad idea to approve these agenda items. And just as an aside, those of us who live in the area of this proposed annexation are not in the city limits, and we are not represented here on this council on issues like these, but we will be affected by whatever happens. Thank you.
Hey, it's good to see everybody again. It's been a while.
Miss you.
My name is Josh Cross, and I live at 119 Trousdale Avenue. I'm not here to talk specifically about item 3 on the agenda, which is near where I live, but more about how that development, along with the other planned residential developments in the area, will impact Long Hollow Pike and 386 and my neighborhood. So every afternoon and morning, I use that stretch of Long Hollow Pike from Howard to 386. If you've ever had to drive through that area during these times, you know what a mess it currently is. Just a few weeks ago, it took me 17 minutes to go less than 2 miles from Howard to 386. That was without school traffic, and I was shocked to find out that there wasn't a wreck or anything else causing traffic to be backed up. It's not uncommon for traffic on the off-ramp there at 109 and Long Hollow Pike to be backed up almost onto 109 in the mornings. And that's only going to get worse as the city's population continues to grow. If traffic starts to actually back up onto 109, I'm afraid of what could happen as a result. So I have a few concerns, not specifically, like I said, about the proposed development tonight, but about how it, along with some other nearby developments, will impact the area. The plan before you tonight, if approved, would put 142 townhomes right on Long Hollow Pike. They're at 109. I think the Planning Commission agenda last night had a proposal for 152 townhomes on Walnut Crest, which is kind of right across the street. And then there's a plan coming for approximately 32 townhomes directly behind my home, just about a half mile away. So just those 3 developments alone would add 326 homes right in that area. And there's an additional, that's an at least 326 additional vehicles, more likely 650 plus vehicles if you take just 2 per home. And that's not even factoring in all the traffic from the 2,000 plus homes at 109 and Red River that was approved with the Nexus development last year. So my biggest question here is, what is the city's plan to deal with traffic in this location? Long Hollow Pike is just 3 lanes from 31 out to Gwynn Avenue, approximately, where it turns into 5 lanes. As more development occurs in this area, and even to the west towards Hendersonville, more people are going to want to come downtown, and they're going to use this road, and it bottlenecks right pretty much in front of my home. Now, I know there's a plan to alleviate traffic on part of Long Hollow Pike from 386 to 109 through this TDOT project, which I haven't heard the council discuss very much. It's a roughly $100+ million project. I think roughly 20 million of that will be needed locally. I believe the county approved 10 million last night. That leaves Gallatin or whoever on the hook for roughly $10 million, maybe a little bit less. What is the plan to fund that? What is the plan for that road? It's not just adding more lanes like I've seen inaccurately reported. This is a whole new road that will eliminate at least one existing intersection and possibly some businesses in that area, from what I've been told. And I'm kind of surprised that I haven't really heard much about it at all. And then, what's the plan for the narrow part of Long Hollow Pike by Howard up to downtown? Are there any plans to widen that? I know it's a state road, but it's becoming a Gallatin problem. And that's without the train coming through, or heaven forbid that it stops on the tracks. As someone who lives in that area, if someone needs to get to the hospital from that part of town, time can mean everything in life or death in some cases. And if there is a train blocking the tracks, you have to either go to 109 all the way over to Long Hollow Pike, or go to Albert Gallatin just to find a way that is above the tracks that you can cross over. Everything else is at-grade crossing. So I just ask, please, that you think about the impact these hundreds and even thousands of new homes are going to have in this area. And if you're going to approve adding more, the city needs to have a plan, in my opinion, to address the infrastructure and to pay for it. Traffic and safety are only going to get worse, especially if nothing is done. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak.
Y'all, hey, everybody, y'all, please don't clap and everything out there, please. And you can't, no, and you don't need to be talking either, sir, please, out there in the public, okay? You can come up here and talk if you want to. Y'all gonna, Don, if you don't mind, thank you.
Good evening, Councilman Hayes. Should I start? Thank you. Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor Brown. My name is Michelle Juvance. I live at 1335 Long Hollow Pike, and there are 3 items on the agenda tonight that I wanted to talk about. And these are 3 items that the Planning Commission recommended a no vote on. 2 are annexations, and one is a townhouse development, and that's what was just talked to you about just prior to me. That was initially approved as a commercial development, and we are losing the potential for commercial if we fill all of our land with apartments and townhomes. I've been very disappointed in the manner that Gallatin is developing. We're becoming, it seems, the city of apartments and townhomes. I wanted to address the annexation of the Cecil Farm. The manner in which the annexation request for the Cecil Farm on Hartsville Pike being called contiguous is not legal. Tennessee Code 651-1 and 658-1 states that there are two options available to annex territory in Tennessee. The first is a resolution for annexation by referendum, and the second is a resolution for annexation by owner consent. The municipality, Gallatin, is initiating the annexation for the right-of-way that is making this contiguous. But the municipality cannot initiate this right-of-way annexation unless it's put on the ballot. Gallatin does not own this right-of-way, nor does the Cecil Farm owner. Therefore, the only legal way for this to be a contiguous annexation is through the resolution for annexation by referendum process. The other legal way for this property to be annexed would be as a non-contiguous annexation through the resolution of annexation by owner consent process as a non-contiguous annexation, which would give the people that live around there, that live in the county, representation, because it would go to the county. And it would also give the county a way to address the Berry Lane issue with a interlocal agreement. So I'm actually putting this on the record so that it's clear that you are all each personally told this information about the illegal manner of this annexation request. Also regarding both annexations, where is the plan of service feasibility study? How can you discuss an annexation and providing services without having a cost-benefit study done? This is required by law. Tennessee Code 651-102 states, before a plan of services may be adopted, the municipality shall submit the plan of services to the local planning commission, if there is one, for study and a written report to be rendered within 90 days after such submission, unless by resolution of the governing body a longer period is allowed. So where is this study? Because it seems to me from reading this law that the planning commission, not the planning department, the planning commission is required to do this study. So if the planning commission actually recommending a no vote, are they still going to be doing this required study, and where is it? Gallatin cannot afford to keep annexing land into the city right now. It's irresponsible to continuing annexing more and more land further and further out, promising more services when we are behind on our current services. Additional police officers and vehicles were promised with the annexations of the Meadows, the Facebook Data Center, Bledsoe Springs, Cumberland Point, Twin Eagles Phase 15, the Bowles Farm, Langford Farm. Yet we're understaffed in our police department. Many of our critical infrastructure departments are short-staffed and stressed. It is not fair to them to continue annexing, I'm almost done, not giving them a chance to catch up. Certain necessary capital projects are being postponed because of staffing issues. This is stated in writing in our capital projects plan that's in tonight's agenda. I'm requesting the council to please put a moratorium on annexations until we can catch up with city services. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. My name is David Klein. I live at 398 Branham Mill Road outside of Gallatin. And I wanted to speak specifically to items 4 and 5 as well. I think the crux of what I'm asking you to do is deny this annexation of the Cecil Farm because we simply, citywide and countywide, don't have the infrastructure. It's clear from the fire station report in the agenda items that there will be required to be another precinct at some point during the development of that property. They've made it very clear, and for a city that has about a $63 million debt at the moment, I don't know how you will come up with the money to add that precinct. I know the county can't come up with that money precinct because we're $425 million in debt as a county. Some of the other items on the plan of service section, the police department, I haven't seen a report from them, but I know from talking to the police department that they're in similar shape to the fire department. There was a question in item K about street lighting. Is the street lighting for Hartsville Pike intended to be paid for by the city or by the developer? It was not clear. If that could be cleared up, I'd appreciate it. Finally, the school systems. I have a report from 2019 that shows Gallatin High School, for instance, at 102% capacity as far as enrollment. There are other schools in the Gallatin area that are more than that, and that was from 2019. I was trying to get the numbers for 2022 today. I won't have them until tomorrow morning. But at the costs of building school infrastructure, the cost of, say, 4,000 children in a K through 12 complex is about $200 million. Simple division will tell you that's about $50,000 a child. We have to get serious about impact fees. There's no way that it is fair for the existing citizens of the city or the county, and I know that the county is responsible for the schools, and that's not really your concern, but still, you have to deal with the fact that you are allowing houses to be built, families to move in, and they have nowhere to go for school. And so I would strongly encourage you to deny this annexation as the Planning Commission did. And let's talk about infrastructure first, and then the involvement of housing, residential, and commercial to help pay the bills that are not being paid right now at the county or at the city levels. Thank you very much.
Mr. Klein, thank you for your comments. I do want to share one thing, just because I've heard this thing about schools a lot. Dr. Phillips, in a recent meeting that he did with our Gallatin Government Relations meeting that they do with the public, he made the comment that after Liberty Creek opens, that the schools would, a new campus would be needed in about another 15 years, which is kind of how Sumner County has trended for a very, very long time. And I just thought, there's no way, looking at, the growth that's happened in the region. And so I'd gotten a report from him a couple of times. I had him send me that same report again. And so I sat down and I did the math, and it was really fascinating to me that the average growth since 2000 was about between 1% and 1.5% a year. I mean, all the way back. But the largest growth was actually in the early 2000s. It wasn't in the last several years. There was one spike of like 3.78% right before COVID, but then it went down like 2.5 or something, and then it came back up like 1. And so that was just so revealing to me. I was shocked by that, to be honest. But apparently between homeschooling, people having fewer children, the people who are moving here tending to be retirees, that's kind of how it's playing out. So I just say that because that is a different perspective than what I had been getting from the public as far as schools go. And then I think we've had the conversation so many times about impact fees, and I do think that we're all open to that. But right now, the state does not allow for us to do that.
Yes.
And my understanding is, I don't know if there's anything lately that's come down, but my understanding is there's continuing litigation with appeals and stuff with Williamson County, that until that is settled, that apparently the legislatures are not going to let our county go that direction. So that's just FYI.
The way I understand that 2006 County Relief Act was written was that counties could get out of it. Apparently, the state's not, as recently as a month and a half ago, they would not allow Murray County out. We're going to have to really, load our guns in order to get out of what we're supposed to be allowed to get out of. But as the son of a builder and a builder myself in Southern California who moved here in 1998, every growing area like Southern California must have impact fees if they're going to survive. You cannot do it on the property taxes. Every house that gets built in Gallatin or Sumner County in general actually adds a negative to the budgets of the counties and the cities. So we're going to have to do battle with the state. And I understand what you're saying. When I moved here, it was about 160,000, and it's about 200,000 now, and it's been fairly steady growth. But you reach a saturation point with Hartsfield Pike, with 31E, with all of the infrastructure. It could handle it.
But there is an opportunity for the county to increase the adequate facilities tax. And also, you just brought up something else that I think would be helpful to address, and that is what you were talking about with the property tax doesn't adequately cover the costs, and that is true. That's why Gallatin has been so successful in having a very balanced revenue stream, and that we're so excited, and commercial investment helps us so much, because the people who are moving here, yes, their property taxes don't cover all the expenses, but the sales tax that they help generate and what our industrial and commercial investors do in our community, that does support that.
Yeah,
So that's just, again, just for information.
They are really the bank.
And I know
roll.
we've gone way over, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I'd like to say also on impact fees, that money also gets put on to the homeowner.
Yes, the new homeowner, the home buyer.
Yes, so that brings us out of affordable housing again.
Also, back in 2006, when I was on the county commission and on planning, we was charging impact fees.
Keep on the subject, yeah.
All right, all that was very interesting. It's kind of fun to hear some of this inside baseball stuff. I'm Jason Dahl. I also live in the county. I'm on Berry Lane, directly across from the property that's being addressed in, I guess it's item 4 and 5. We relocated here from Virginia about, I guess, maybe a little over a year ago. With my parents, who are approaching 70 years old, both of them, with the idea of subdividing a property that was a little over 9 acres. And our goal was to build 2 homes on it, one for them and one for myself, so that I could care for them in place as they aged. So with that said, I wanted to make sure y'all understood. It's personal for me when a development like this is being proposed. As someone else has said, I don't think any of us are unrealistic about what's eventually going to happen to any large piece of property. But comparing, for example, the city's plan for this density of housing versus what is being proposed is wildly disproportionate. As others have mentioned, the facilities are not there. The road in particular is dangerous. I don't know how many of you have driven on Berry Lane. Maybe all of you have, and I'm preaching to the choir, but it is a very narrow road. My neighbors frequently have to replace their mailboxes because the mirrors of vehicles strike them because there's not enough room for vehicles to pass one another safely without slowing down, and some folks honestly don't slow down. The developer, I think, has attempted to address that with sort of a hand wave where we're talking about, maybe forcing people to turn left. But I think everyone here knows the reality of the situation is people aren't stupid, and they're gonna make a right. They're gonna try to get around traffic because their time is valuable. So I would ask that you all consider the real world consequences of this decision. It's easy to sit in here and talk about inside baseball and numbers and percentages and things like that. But at the end of the day, myself, my neighbors, even the folks who are going to move into some of these houses that are built are going to have to live with it. And if these serious concerns are not addressed, some by the city, some by the county, some by the developer, people are going to have a negative impact on their life. It's it's not a NIMBY kind of a thing, and not in my backyard. It's a safety issue. And so I would ask, again, that you consider that, and please vote no on the annexation. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak?
Brian Garner, 1069 Berry Lane. I actually live right next door to Jason and his family. Great bunch of neighbors. Just to move along with what Jason said, the infrastructure for me is a huge thing as far as if you look at Airport Road, or I'm sorry, Hartsville Pike right now, with other developments coming in further out Hartsville Pike. It's hard enough right now, not counting this annexation, the homes coming in across from Berry Lane if it's voted in. It's hard enough to get out of Berry Lane onto to Hartsville Pike now. Safety is a huge concern. Along with, again, like Jason said, Berry Lane, obviously, Berry Lane, I would imagine, would have to be widened at some point. Well, what are we going to do about Airport Road, or Hartsville Pike, I'm sorry, Hartsville Pike? We're going to widen it. It's already getting busy enough right now. Leave out in the morning trying to get to town or get kids to school, or if you're going to Hendersonville. So I just hope that we really look at it. I think infrastructure for sure needs to be looked at before you're talking about a subdivision or even other subdivisions of this magnitude going in, again, with the school systems, the infrastructure of roads. Look at the construction going on right now on the road from 109 over. We've got all 4 lanes on both sides of the road, nobody doing anything. Why are we working on, why can't we do one side of the road or get something done, but we've got traffic blocked on both sides. You can't, it takes 45 minutes an hour to get from Berry Lane going the back way on Airport Road. It takes 45 minutes, if you're lucky in the morning, just to get over to the other side of Gallatin. But before something like this, an infrastructure like this of subdivisions and thousands and hundreds of families or kids, we really need to look at the infrastructure. I don't know that we're looking at that enough. So please, I hope you really consider that and vote this down for this annexation, especially off of Berry Lane. Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name is Christy Allen. I live at 104 Vineyards Court, and just want to say that I agree with the people who have spoken before me. And as far as the infrastructure goes in that area, when this was denied by the Planning Commission back in October, Mr. Perrier said at that time, I don't think it's ready for annexation at this time. He said our infrastructure in that area can't handle it. It's a good-looking plan, the plan that was proposed at that time, in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Infrastructure hasn't changed. The number of homes, has been reduced somewhat, but still, the infrastructure can't handle what's been proposed. There was a traffic study done in 2019 on Berry Lane for another development that ended up not happening, but it was determined at that time that Berry Lane would need to be widened in order to accommodate that development, and it was only 163 homes. Berry Lane is only half as wide as the roads, the requirement of the roads within any of these subdivisions that are being proposed now. It's only half the width. So obviously, something's going to have to be done. The city doesn't have the money to do it. The county doesn't have the money to do it. You know, they confirmed that back in 2019. And when that particular development was being discussed, the developer at that point had agreed to make a contribution toward that, and it was $400,000. And whether or not, you know, impact fees, you know, I know there's been some discussion about that and whether that's allowed. If nothing else, make the developer responsible for those fees. I mean, and you know, whether or not it's an impact fee officially, but they're making money off of these developments. Let them pay some of this so the taxpayers don't have to. Someone's going to have to pay it. End of the day. If we don't make the developer do it, the city doesn't do it, the county doesn't do it, it's going to be these guys, the taxpayers. We're worn out. I mean, the debt that the county's already in, the debt that the city is in, at some point it's going to have to stop. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, public recognition is closed. We'll move on to mayor's comments.
Be quick. Just a couple of things. I want to say a huge thank you to the American Public Power Association. They were in Gallatin last Friday. They're having their annual meeting in Nashville. Councilman Alexander's actually been there with his service on the electric board, but they do a public service project in every city that they meet, or in every area that they meet in, and they happen to choose to pick up trash in the city of Gallatin. And it's like I told them, while that's a little bit embarrassing that we need it, we are so appreciative. And they were super people, and they loved our community, and they were glad to be here, and they felt really great about helping us. And so that was fun for them to come out last Friday and work on that. Want to let people to know today is Flag Day, in case you did not know that. We have a post that tells a bit of the history. This Thursday, third Thursday on Main, kicks off. It's the Wanna Beatles, which are that group's always very popular. It goes from 6:30 until 9 p.m. on our historic downtown square, brought to you by Historic Downtown Gallatin and State Farm Insurance. The Antique and Classic Cars Cruise-In will also be at the Gallatin Civic Center that evening. On Friday, the Gallatin Farmers Market Moonlight Market, sponsored by the Chamber, is from 6 until 9 p.m. And then this Saturday and Sunday, the Kiwanis Club is sponsoring their Murder at the Grand Gatsby, happening at the American Legion Post 17, both nights, 6 until 9 p.m. On Sunday, there's the Juneteenth, and they're calling it the Come Unity celebration, and that's happening at the old fairgrounds on Blythe Street. It's from 2 p.m. until 8 p.m. They do have vendor booths available and sponsorships if anyone would like to participate in that. And then, of course, Monday is the official national observance of Juneteenth. Also want to say good job for all who helped with the rodeo last week, benefiting the Sumner County Prevention Coalition.
Good, thank you. Moving on to the agenda right now, item number 1 is resolution number R2206-45, the City of Gallatin's new pay plan. Connie Flood.
Good evening, council. Good evening, Mayor. I was asked to cover a calculation tonight. At the work session on May 24th, we shared the 19 public employers so the employees would know who in Middle Tennessee are in the benchmarks in the pay study, since I had questions from employees wanting to know prior to the work session. Mr. Thompson shared at the work session in more detail that each job had two market data numbers: the public sector benchmark number and the private general business sector medium rank. These two components are averaged to give a market rate and a grade is then assigned to the position. Results were reviewed. We looked at internal equity, if numbers appeared out of line, duties, job descriptions, and any additional information that was shared were taken into account or considered. The goal was to assign a grade that reflects the job or position. In addition, on the last week, I was asked, with regard to the salary schedule, it was requested that the titles of the position reflect the appropriate grade if an adjustment has been made. An example with the administrative assistants. The salary schedule now reflects the administrative assistants at levels 1 through 5. We've addressed this type of issue with the grade or the salary schedule, and it was reflected in the Exhibit A that councils had the opportunity to review. And so tonight, I'm seeking approval from the council to move the pay study forward.
I can probably help with any answers too, if anyone
Is there a
has any
motion?
questions at this
I'll make a
point.
motion.
Motion to move.
Motion and a second by Elaine. Any discussion?
I just want to say, like, I think the city, the pay study is one piece, right? It's always one piece. I appreciate the comments the gentleman made earlier this evening. We're always looking for better ways to take care of our employees. You will have the benefits comparisons still to come. Our benefits package is very, very strong. We've added 2 holidays this year. We added the holiday a couple of years ago. We continue to do things that matter to our employees. We added vision coverage and dental coverage in recent years. So we're trying to do some things, but that pay thing is never something, the time pay and having to work the 8 hours to get the overtime pay for a holiday, that's something that doesn't really make sense to me. I didn't realize that was an issue. So that was interesting to kind of learn an employee's perspective and how it affected them. But those are things that we can always address in the future. I know it's difficult when you look at the pay study, and we know what the cost of living is like here. It's hitting everybody in every sector. Some of our wages, when I look at the pay study and I see what people are making, it hurts my heart because I know how hard it has to be for them to live. But that's why we have to take out the people. It's hard to say. We can't look at the individuals. We have to look at the jobs. The jobs have to be compared. That's why we use a consultant to look at the market and see what those jobs are paying across the market in the public sector and in the private sector and create that pay. And people land where they do. It is interesting to see, when you do look at the individuals, people that have been with the city a long time and where they are now and in their compensation, and it's exciting to see how some of those have improved over the years. And there is a lot of opportunity that remains within the city. Some of our departments have really worked hard to find opportunities for those employees who want to improve their wages and have better jobs even within our city. So it's a difficult thing. It's not perfect. I think we are at a very good place with it. But, you're not comparing 100 jobs that are all exactly like 100 jobs in 100 other communities. I mean, all the jobs have slightly different nuances and slightly different responsibilities and really they're in different kinds of communities with different kinds of demands and different kinds of customer service expectations. And so I feel like we've worked really hard to get this where it is. I feel much better about this one than I did the one that we did several years ago. Of course, that was my first exposure to it. So I've been more engaged this go-round than I could have been at that point because y'all had started, not y'all, because a lot of us weren't here then, but they had actually begun that before any of us were here. And we actually found out something, and I don't even know if you know this, Ms. Flood, but the people that did our pay study actually did a pay study for the city of Gallatin back in around 2000. Are you shaking your head at me because I'm talking so much, Mr. Hayes?
No.
Okay. Back in the early 2000s, the same company actually did a pay study for us. They've done a lot of pay studies in and around Middle Tennessee. They've done pay studies all across the state of Tennessee. They have done studies for cities that have all different kinds of configurations. So I feel like we have good benchmarks. I feel like we've done our best. I should also mention that this consultant is also well aware of what other cities are doing to compensate their employees as well. And they know what our goals are, and they've tried to put us at a place where we will be competitive. And I think I mentioned this before, but I think it's worth repeating. The 10% temporary increase that we did for several of our low-wage employees really helped us in this pay study. So to be able to keep that in place was the right thing to do. And then I think in every case, those employees receive additional compensation through the study, so.
Can we look further into that 8 hours prior to the holiday pay?
Yeah,
I don't
that-
really understand that either.
Yeah, that would be.
I think that's a different piece.
Yeah, that's not really relevant to the pay grade, this pay study, but it, again, is certainly something that we can look at.
Yes.
And so in how we do compensation, how we count hours, how we provide, how we calculate overtime hours. I think that's what he's talking about.
Some
Especially our-
incentives.
Especially our employees that's been with us for a while. I mean, they're sticking it out with us. I just want to make sure that we take care of them and try to keep them here, working in the city of Gallatin.
Also, I think it's important for the new people so that they can start out and realize there's a career here if they stay with it and, have a reasonable wage.
Now, have y'all talked, is every department head, are they on board, Connie? I mean,
The consultant, as well as me, at one point, Rachel jumped into, I had a death in the family, but they have been spoken to. They've had the opportunity to share their concerns.
I mean, if we do bring this up and it does pass, I guess it'd be next reading, it'd be next week. Can we still make changes to it or not?
Well, what you have done in the past is with a new budget year, if there is an issue with a position where you feel like someone is no longer being fairly compensated, you can do it anytime, but that's kind of been what I have seen be asked for at the budget year, to say, look, this person is making this and this is not appropriate, we need to put them here. In answer to your initial question, Mr. Hayes, I would say that every department head except one has been satisfied, and that was in relation to one position in that department.
And I'm thinking, that one department's probably the same thing I'm talking about, but I mean, and I can see where they're coming from. It was probably hard to compare to other cities because a lot of cities did not have that position or,
Well, I think in
position,
that
so.
specific, in that specific instance, I can't speak, the consultant actually went kind of outside of what she just described and actually looked at similar agencies across the state. I think he reviewed 14 that had agencies like that, and also compared them to state jobs related to TDOT certifications and the like there, so. And remember, too, that in this resolution this evening, we are asking specifically that the mayor have the discretion to extend out the steps for key personnel. And I think that that is very, very important, because some of the people that look at this and feel like that they are going to be negatively impacted by the study, it's because they're at the top of the scale, where I think we can all see we can all see why it makes good sense for the mayor to have some discretion to continue out the scale for personnel who are key to the city of Gallatin. And I'm talking about some of our, very specialized employees that we are going to be a lot better off retaining them than we are trying to find, someone new, because that person gets disenfranchised with their position and seeks employment elsewhere.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 2, resolution number R2206-52. This be Connie Flood.
City recorder position has not had an increase since 2010. With evaluating the other positions, we thought this position's salary should be looked at as well. And so we did, and so I'm seeking council's approval to increase the salary for the city recorder.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 3, ordinance number 02206-36, amending the Long Hollow Pike Mixed-Use Development Plan. Bill McCord.
Evening, council. This next item is a request for an amendment to an approved preliminary master development plan for the Long Hollow Pike mixed-use development. Let's go back here. The Long Hollow Pike mixed-use development was approved in 2014. It consists of really what you might call 2 phases, and the location is there on the south side of Long Hollow Pike on the east side of Highway 109, the bypass. It is bisected now by Albright Farms Road, which provides access to the first phase, which was a 188-unit residential Gallatin apartment complex, of course, which is already constructed. The original approved plan included the apartments, and unfortunately, this laser pointer doesn't work on the television screen. But what you have here is, to the top of the screen is basically east, and to the left of the screen is north. On the south portion is the location of the apartment complex, and it backs up to the railroad tracks. The northerly half, let's call it that, consists of a variety of commercial and office uses that were approved and has since not been developed. So its property is zoned all MU, but the north part is the commercial part, the south part was the residential part. So what the applicant is proposing, there is no zoning change, but the applicant would like to construct townhome units, and as well, there'd be 143 townhome units indicated by the peach, I guess it's peach-colored rectangles that you see on there, and it would also include an amenity center with a clubhouse and a pool. As a what they would also do is retain a 1.5 acre portion of that property for commercial or retail activities, which is shown in the orange, really squared part there, adjacent to Albright Farms Road. This would not involve constructing any new driveways or streets onto Long Hollow Pike, but it would connect into Mike Street, which is located on the southeast portion of the property, and that would tie that back into Long Albright Farms Road. So the architecture for these units is described here. It is a kind of clapboard type design. It would include some with garages that you see there and then some surface parking. The plan there, you can see surface parking in certain areas, but by and large, you would have garage units for almost all of those units. And they would face onto the private drives interior to the site and not have driveways that face onto Albright Farms or to Long Hollow Pike. And of course, they're 2-story, and they would not require any exception for this development plan, other than the architecture does not meet the 70% brick or stone requirement. So this is the alternative architecture that they're requesting. There you can see a better rendering of their close up there. This one shows front parking. They will have garage parking, however, as this was shown with each one of those units there.
That commercial parcel, is that something, who decides what's going in there?
That would be based on a final master development plan. So, for example, the original plan included things such as a convenience store with gas station, offices, restaurant, things of that sort that are allowed in the MU zoning district. So what would happen is that if someone wanted to use that parcel for one of those commercial activities, they could just come in and submit a site plan, and that'd be reviewed by the planning commission.
Could a McDonald's go in there?
Restaurants would be allowed, yes.
Bill, are you finished?
So,
I was going to say something if you were finished, but I didn't know if you were.
no, I was just going to mention that the Planning Commission did review this request, and both the planning staff as well as the Economic Development Department expressed some concerns about losing some vital commercial lands, designated lands, per the master plan at this location, because this is a major interchange within the city and a gateway to the city, both for people within the city and its accessibility, as well as, of course, visitors that would be utilizing this. So we're getting a lot of pressure to, I guess, convert some commercial properties over to residential, and that's just part of the market because of how commercial activities have changed, a lot of deliveries now. And also, as was, I think, mentioned tonight, there is a project that was rezoned from commercial to townhome development just to the north of this, which is, let's see if I have yeah, let's show it. That area that looks to the north, it's wooded on the northeast corner of Long Hollow Pike and Highway 109. What's changed from CS zoning to, believe, MRO, and that it was also approved for a townhome project with roughly about the same number of units that are proposed again on the south side. So that demand, if you want to call it that, for the townhomes in this immediate area has been met by that more recent development. The Planning Commission did review this request and did not approve a resolution recommending that by a 3-2 vote. So we only had 5 members of the Planning Commission present at that time. So they did not recommend changing the master plan to allow for the townhome development.
And what was their reason?
As I'm mentioning about the loss of commercial activities.
Does this have anything to do with the TDOT project that is going to be coming through that way and the fear that that might endanger that project for us?
No, ma'am. The TDOT project, and Nick may want to speak about this, does not encompass reconstructing that interchange. At least the way they have it designed, the TDOT project would only make adjustments and additions to roads west of this interchange back towards near Greenlee Boulevard. So
they took out the commercial planning and have put in townhouses instead?
Basically, mostly, yeah.
And left how much, was it 1.5 acres, 2 acres?
Yeah. Let's get back to that slide there. That orange square there. So on the north, or excuse me, the southeast corner of Albright Farms and Long Hollow Pike would be left for some type of commercial use.
All right, do I hear a motion?
We have a representative here for this project.
I think so.
Yes, sir. Zach Baker with Greenland Design. I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
You have much interest in putting commercial in that area?
I believe they've had no inquiries into that area for any type of retail or commercial. And that's pushing the drive to switch this over to residential.
I'm curious. I don't know who the right person to answer this question would be, and I guess it actually would depend on what the commercial development is. But thinking about at least one of the earlier speakers, to me, residential would be less impactful than commercial, but maybe not, since residential would concentrate their traffic at certain times of the day. But I mean. And then I look at it and I think, okay, well, we allowed it for across the street. How can we not allow it here? And so those are the things that if I had a vote, I would be thinking about. But it's, I mean, I don't think it's an out-of-line request. I'm just struggling about what, I would recommend, or, what my opinion would be is the right or wrong thing. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the traffic would be less impactful with the residential, but we've also ordered a traffic impact study to prove that.
You have an idea what sort of commercial you'd be seeking for that one parcel? Would it be a C-store or,
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
which does have a higher impact, I mean, honestly. But spread out.
James, do you want to say anything, or do you?
James Fenton, Economic Development City. We kind of came to this project late, and the developer did come into our office and sit down and look at it, and the fact that we were appreciative that they had, again, replaced some of those suggested living quarters with retail. So, you know, from our point of view, it's not the ultimate best thing, but again, we were appreciative that they did go ahead and put some commercial back in there.
Thank you. All right. Anybody?
Motion to move forward.
Second.
A motion by Ms. George, second by Mr. Alexander. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 4 to 1, I believe, Connie. Thank you. All right, item number 4, resolution number 2206-48, adopting a plan of service annexation for 2 parcels consisting of 187.4 acres and an adjacent 5.52 acre segment of Hartsville Pike.
Council members, this next item is a dual item. It will require 2 resolutions, one for the annexation, one for the plan of service, and I will present them together. It's not accompanied by a zoning request at this time. If it is in fact annexed, then a zoning action will proceed through the Planning Commission and then come back separately to the City Council. What we have is a request to annex a 187.4 acre parcel west of Berry Lane and south of Hartsville Pike, as well as an adjacent portion of the Hartsville Pike State Highway 25 right-of-way. The applicant is requesting the annexation with their intents to develop the property for a single-family subdivision. Currently, the property is, of course, I think most of you are aware, is farmland. It's been cleared, and with the exception of field lines and fences. And the city's boundary right now comes down to the north side of Hartsville Pike, roughly in the central portion of the parcel. So the north boundary, or the north right-of-way line of Highway 25 and currently what's in the city, which is part of all the Facebook property, it's technically not contiguous to the city or to this parcel. What we have done in the past is annexed rights-of-way, in this case, TDOT rights-of-way, and we've annexed parts of Hartsville Pike from roughly Gateway Drive back towards Airport Road a couple of years ago. As you recall, we also annexed Big Station Camp Boulevard just earlier this year, and we've annexed parts of Highway 109, as well as what is now developing as the Albert Gallatin extension. So Nick has had involvement with TDOT, and TDOT does not require a petition, and they really have no concern, expressed no concern to us about the need for the city to provide for a petition with their endorsement. So part of making this officially contiguous would be connecting and annexing right-of-way. And so that 5 acre portion of right-of-way would extend where that little notch is in the northeast corner of this property, where there's a existing home which would be retained and outside the city, westwardly to the existing city boundary, which is just east of Gateway Drive. So that's what comprises the 5.52 acre right-of-way portion. The 187 acre, of course, is the larger piece of the property, and the applicant currently has this property in our comp plans based description is a rural community character area. And this was adopted by the Planning Commission in February. And this is a page from the comp plan. It gives you a density range of up to 2 units per acre. So you've heard earlier that with the 264 units that they're proposing to develop on the 187 acres, that's less than 2 units an acre. So this would be in the higher range of the rural character area. In addition, the comp plan also indicates some suitable types of development and some examples of what some of that development might look like. And it also has some less suitable types of renderings. The development plan, which is not presented tonight as part of the zoning, but would come later, it consists of a labyrinth of streets of interconnected roadways with 2 roads that would connect to Hartsville Pike, and also 1 road that would connect to Berry Lane, and then a stub street that would connect to a substantially vacant parcel of land just to the west, which is also adjacent to Hartsville Pike. So these would all again be single-family lots, and this density is a similar density to what you could get in the county under rural residential zoning. The county has rural residential zoning with full utilities. The city has full utilities just to the north and west of the northwest corner of this property, and those would be extended by the developer at the developer's cost. So we've done an analysis of the information that the applicant has provided to us. There are some natural features that extend on this property, including some sinkholes like there is all over Gallatin, and a creek that runs through the property, and those would be protected by buffers, open space, and be left undisturbed. And the homes would then be built on the balance of the property. So it was like we have with most of these developments, where it's kind of a clustered type of design for the subdivision. So this allows for a variety of lot sizes, although most of these lot sizes would probably be in the range of anywhere from about 15,000 square feet, somewhere in that range. There is, of course, I think most of you are aware, there's a report describing the existing traffic condition on Hartsville Pike. It's averaging around 10,000 vehicles per day, which for a roadway of that type is probably operating at level service B or C. Having the traffic light was just installed just to the west of this site as well. So density and spacing of traffic signals affects the adopted level of service. And the Planning Commission, as you've heard already, reviewed this. There was 5 members present at that Planning Commission, and they voted 3-2 to not recommend approval of a resolution to adopt a level plan of service and the annexation of this property. It is in the urban growth boundary, though.
Any discussion?
There was a question by one of the speakers earlier about street lighting. Just address that for their benefit, if you would.
Yeah, the street lighting is one of those things that is a municipal service that would be provided. It's described in the plan of service. On page, in your agenda package.
38.
Page 38, okay. It describes street lighting. Street lighting would be provided into the annexation as required by GDE. The developer usually arranged with GDE to install that street lighting, and that would include the section that's adjacent to Hartsville Pike and this development. So street lighting was installed on Big Station Camp Boulevard. There's also a provision to install street lighting at a certain time frame, I can't remember what it was, on 109 even, and on Albert Gallatin Extension, when that annexation went through.
Is there a difference with what the county will allow with the existing zoning based on whether or not there is sewer available? Do you know?
I believe I tried to address that in the report. Let me pull that here.
Paige, what you're saying is the availability of sewers, to how many units they can build out through the county on that piece of property.
Right, I mean, you know, I've said before that we've got to stop annexing out that way because it's extending our demand beyond what I feel comfortable committing to at this point. But, you know, the conundrum that we've created for ourselves is allowing developers outside of the city limits to access our sewer, and therefore, you know, they can create higher density. And then what happens? Well, they can develop in the county because they have our sewer, but then we get no revenue from them. So, I mean, it's just,
But we legally can't keep them from connecting onto our sewer.
we can change it. We changed it several years ago to allow them to because we felt like, I don't remember exactly how that transpired. I don't know if Mr. Kellogg would remember. But I think they thought that that would be beneficial to the utility department because we weren't having, you know, the growth, and to have those customers helped our department. But I think now it is providing a negative for our department and for our city. You know, just because of the situation it creates. Because what we're doing is we're allowing them to build with density. They come to us, want to be annexed, I guess, to have our police and fire and electric. But the reality that is now existing is that they can build close to the same thing in the county, yet we're just, you know, kind of giving up the revenue that would bring.
Another,
My issue is about the fire department, how the fire department can handle it.
Well, I was about to bring all that up
Oh.
in a minute, but.
Yeah, I think that Chief Beaman is working on a plan to provide service that would encompass that area. And I think it's going to be a very doable plan, and we will have to get there in the next several years anyway, just to provide good coverage for our entire city. But, you know, that does stretch it.
Yeah.
Stretches it.
another thing, Bill, is 25 is a state road. I mean, it's a state road, right?
Yes.
Okay, but the state right now, they don't have any plans to do anything in that area.
Not that I'm aware of.
Like they do on, like we were just talking about Long Hollow Pike, 25, that section, but.
Right. And
You know, that throws up another thing right there too, as far as infrastructure goes, you know, as far as putting all that traffic on that road.
But
Not
is
that
it
you don't
for-
have enough right now. I know that they pointed that out, but
Having what? I couldn't hear you.
traffic.
Oh, yeah.
And I mentioned that in the report here. Now, the city, as I mentioned in the planning commission last night, the city does not have an adopted level service standard. So a roadway like that, which is essentially a rural highway, can carry a lot of traffic, a lot more traffic than that's on the road now. I know it's not comfortable for a lot of people for that level of traffic, or that's out there even today. It wasn't comfortable for them maybe even 10 years ago, but that traffic volume is continuing to grow. And it's growing because of growth occurring in the county as well as in other counties that are using that road to get to Gallatin.
I think both 31 and 25 are seeing tremendous impact because of what's happening on further on down the road, and that traffic doesn't enter Gallatin if it just happens to exist in the county and not in the city limits. So, I mean, it impacts us either way, and you look at some of the, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting and speaking without being recognized.
First, I'd like to ask Susan to address what was brought up about legality of the city requesting
As Mr. McCord said, TDOT this is the way that TDOT requires annexation. Is that correct, Mr. McCord?
That's correct. And Nick, I don't know if Nick has actually had discussions with them about that. They're not interested in participating in our annexation process. And so you can imagine if what was proposed by the citizen that got up and spoke, that you would not be able to annex across a road unless you had a referendum as she had proposed. So we have not done that in practice, so, including our most recent annexation of Big Station Camp Boulevard.
I just wanted to bring that up first and make sure that we weren't doing anything illegal.
Big Station Camp Boulevard was a county road, and the county did agree to that and requested that we annex.
On looking at the plan of service, it's the police protection, it says here that additional police officers and vehicles will be needed. There is a letter from Chief Beeman in our packet that has to do with fire that says that at this point, the busiest of our fire stations, Station 1, would be the one that's required to come to that area. And because of that location, that this possible annexation would not receive the same level of fire and EMS protection as other areas of the city located within the coverage areas of existing fire stations. The national accepted standard for travel time to an emergency incident is 4 minutes, and based upon historical data to incidents in this area, the average travel time is 10 minutes, not including the time required to process the call for help, and that could add up to be 13 minutes. So that alone does not seem safe to me, to have houses for people who, until another fire department is built, would have to wait 13 minutes possibly for help. As far as the traffic, we've heard on other developments that were proposed, many people talk about Hartsville Pike traffic, and we've heard about the wrecks there. We've seen or I see when I'm out at that time, at peak times, the traffic is ridiculous, just like it is on 31E. People are coming in from Hartsville and coming to work in Gallatin or coming through Gallatin, and it's very hard to get past the buildup of cars. There's a lot of wrecks. We've had that brought up before by citizens who were concerned about other developments. And the other thing I want to bring up is as far as the houses, the number of houses per acreage, somebody brought this up, and I think it should be considered that when you take out the amount of unused acreage, it is put in a lot bigger number per acre for each house. I'm sorry, I'm a little hoarse tonight. But for those reasons, I believe that the Planning Commission was correct in not recommending this.
Bill, did you ever get us a number of how many houses they could put on this development if it was done in the county?
Basically 2 units per acre with sewer and water.
And Ms. Love just made a comment that made me think that, if they're in the county, they have no fire service. I hadn't ever really kind of thought about that comparatively, but that's accurate.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
they have
county has
volunteer
different
fire
zoning
service.
than we have with the master plan type zoning that's being proposed, and I didn't get into a lot of details about that tonight because it's not a specific agenda item, is that you have control over the architecture that you have. And these numbers, I don't even know if I got to the architecture part of it yet before we started having discussion. Oop, there we go. So, there's the open space tracts that will be identified and kept, and it includes an existing cemetery, which we've had plenty of developments that include cemeteries that are kept as open space. But, and these are the houses, these are the typical houses that they would be providing. So you can see that they're brick and stone type homes. And some of them have front-loading garages, and some have side or rear-loading garages, so.
I can't imagine some of these homes being put
Similar.
on that small amount of acreage.
Well, they would be roughly 15,000 square foot lots, and some of the lots that you have even in Fairview are comparable to that.
And then, of course, there's Berry Lane, which is a very small rural road, and the county has already said that they won't widen it. I believe the developer mentioned that they were willing to widen it, but only at the area where this development would be built. So that's another thing that we've considered in Planning Commission.
Anybody have anything else, discussion-wise? All right.
I also would bring up that we try to keep developments similar to the other character of the other homes that are built in an area. And I believe that there is no other development that close right there that has homes that are that tight, that high of a density.
Anybody else?
At the price of land.
Doing number 4 and 5, same. So I guess there's not a motion to move it on, so.
Okay, no motion at all?
No.
Next one is also a similar type of request. This is one that is also located in the county. This one was previously located in our planning region before the planning region was eliminated. This includes a little over just over 5 acre parcel of land located north of Hartsville Pike and east of Airport Road intersection. The properties to the west and northwest and to the east are already located in the city limits. The parcels that you see, 43, 42, and 42.01, are not located in the city, and the properties on the south side of Hartsville Pike are not located in the city. This property is, right now it's vacant, substantially vacant. And the applicant does want to rezone this property, of course, eventually after annexation occurs. And the annexation would occur under the same pretext as described earlier in that other request. So the proposed zoning on the property is MRO, which is a multi-family residential and office district. And the applicant would like to, and I'll come back to that, would like to build a series of townhouses on this property, which is, again, adjacent to properties that are zoned R8 PRD on the east side, which is part of the Bledsoe Springs property that was annexed a year or so ago, and industrial property to the northwest in the city, and the convenience store that's under construction to the southwest.
What planning commission?
Pardon?
What planning commission say about this?
Planning Commission also voted 3-2 not to approve this one.
By heavy discussion?
So the units would be comprised of less than hardy board materials with a brick water board around the lower portions of the buildings. And there was, I think, 52 units proposed with this development. Access would be to and from the proposed street within Bledsoe Springs, as well as through an access easement, which will be on the backside of the convenience store. So they'll have a shared access point. They propose a gate at that access point, but not a gate on the Bledsoe Springs side. So it would be contingent upon them developing the Bledsoe Springs project, which does have approval of zoning. It's the same pictures there from a different angle. There's some design of structures there and floor plans, if you got that in your agenda package. And again, the Planning Commission voted the same 3-2 at that meeting not to recommend for annexation of this property.
Anybody have any discussion?
Motion to move forward. Move it on.
Have a motion, is there a second?
I second it.
Second, any discussion? I guess my thing with this is, does it really fit in with the area out there?
I thought the planning commission, there was some discussion about access, but I can't recall, it's been a bit. That
Does it
they
fit
felt
in
like
with-
there's a challenge with that. I do think, I just want to mention, I do think that there is a representative for the applicant here tonight, in case y'all want to hear.
I just asked him a question. I just wanted him to see if it, I mean, do you think it fits in with the area?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were making a comment, I'm sorry.
No, I said, do you think it fits in with? Goodness.
As I mentioned earlier, it was previously in the planning region where you had zoning authority at that time, and it was zoned OR, which would allow for this type of development. It's no longer in the planning region, so it reverts back to county rural residential zoning, which is basically without utilities, 40,000 square foot lots. With utilities, they get 2 units an acre.
Rural doesn't really make sense there either, correct?
That's the zoning of the county, so.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know,
I just,
what does the planning commission think the appropriate use would be there? What does planning?
They didn't
staff
indicate
think
what appropriate use was for that
For
property.
opinion, what would you think it would be?
What would I think is appropriate? I think that this type of use between these zonings is a transition from the more intense use to the west to the less intense use to the east. And
From
it's
industrial to
consistent with the
single
zoning
family.
policy of the city when they had zoning authority on this area, so. I don't think that
And
those
fire police
conditions have
have no problem
changed.
with it.
I just.
But it does have, it would have and send and receive traffic to and from Hartsville Pike. So those same conditions that were brought up at the previous item about traffic concerns or whatever the level service standard that y'all want to create or find is appropriate would also apply here.
I just think it's hard to see townhomes going out there, to be honest with you, but that's my opinion.
Well, the other alternative, I think, would probably be industrial, and then you'd have industrial directly next to the
Yeah.
single-family homes.
Yeah, on the east side, yes, it's single family. You can kind of see the lots that they have there, proposed lots.
We need places for people to live.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? No. I got 2-1.
Oh, it's not gonna pass.
Huh?
No,
Okay, 2-2.
I mean, it's not gonna pass.
Mayor, break his vote.
Mayor breaks tie to send it on. You break the tie to send it on.
Send it on and consider it. I mean, that way you'll have a full, hopefully, have a full council next week.
Go.
Is that a yes?
To send it on, yes.
Okay. All
I'm-
right. All right, we'll send it on then. All right. Item number 7. Are we on 7 or 8?
Evan? What should you say?
No, we're on number 8. Yeah. Ordinance number 02206-35. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you. This is a ordinance requesting additional funding for a project that we placed in last year's budget to renovate our service center office space, break room, and locker rooms. It allows us to comply with the 8A requirements that were evaluated on that building. Placed funding based off an engineer's estimate for last year's budget. That's been bid now, and the project has come in over what the engineering estimate was. And we're requesting $400,000 from gas reserve to be placed into that project.
Motion approved.
Have
Second.
a motion by Fennell, second by Councilman Alexander. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
David, while you're up here, let me ask you a question.
Okay?
Is out of order? Well, we had a problem with our water as far as going over to the park area. And I know that you've been out there trying to get our restrooms up for Mr. Brown. David, do you have the supplies to run the water line to the building, or do we need to ask Mr. Kellogg for some?
We got it under control.
That's all I want to know.
All right, moving on. Item number 9, purge bad debt. Mr. Kellogg.
This is our annual presentation to purge bad debts from our system. These are accounts that have been in collections several years old. There were 414 accounts for $76,000.
How much?
76,000. It's less than it was last year by number of counts and dollar amount.
Motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion's there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 10, this is amended ordinance number 02205-20, amending Gallatin Municipal Code about alcoholic beverages.
Okay, this was asked to be put on the work session at our last work session to address financial obligations. I think that was the only thing that you wanted to discuss. It did pass first reading, but we are here tonight to talk about financial obligations. I'd handed out Smyrna's, what they require, and I also advised you that whenever anyone is applying for a retail liquor store permit or license from actually it's a license from the TABC, they have to prove their net worth, that they're financially stable, and someone had asked me, what do they have to prove? And so I've just handed out to you the TABC rules on financial disclosure, and you'll see it's Rule 100-03.09, licenses and permits, and it's subsection 2, financial disclosure. They have to produce financial statements containing their financial information, loan agreements related to the liquor store, any gifts related to the licensed premises, and any other information requested by the commission. And the commission may refuse to grant a retail liquor license to any applicant who fails to demonstrate by preponderance of the evidence the financial ability and responsibility to reasonably conduct business. And I think the reason that you asked about this was because Mount Juliet, in their new ordinance that they passed, just said that they adopt and that they have to meet this with the state, which everyone has to meet this in the state. We don't have to put that in our ordinance. You can if it makes you feel better, or if you want to do something like Smyrna and you ask for any other cities. I've not been able to find any other city that requires anything beyond what the state does except for Smyrna.
I think it's fine.
That's enough.
Yeah.
So,
What does everybody else think?
so
I think that's enough.
So we're just going to leave it the way it is and let that state handle that. I think that's an excellent idea.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for your work.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Yes.
All right, item number 11, this is resolution number R2206-46. Mr. Fenton.
Thank you. We've got an opportunity to reappoint Joanne Walker to the Gallatin Industrial Development Board, and I ask that you move that
Motion.
To
forward.
approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I would
All
ask
right,
the
item
same
number
thing for
12.
Alan Ramsey.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Nichols, report of capital improvement program.
Thank you. Back in February, we asked that you approve a policy for the city to have a capital improvement program. It's just a tool that we will use for planning for the future. It shows that we're looking further than past our nose when it comes to large capital projects that will be forthcoming, how we plan to fund them. And this is our initial report of that. I had hoped to have it to you at the same time as the budget was presented, but with salary study and everything else going on, it's a little late. But this is our initial program. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to approve these projects in the year that's listed. That's just the year that the department has requested that they be considered. And again, it's a tool for us for planning for finances for the future when we might need to go out for a debt issue to cover some of these larger projects. It gives our grant personnel time to look at potential grant funding for a lot of these. And so there's a summary spreadsheet on the first two pages, and then each department gives a detailed description of each item, and those are the subsequent pages to this.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And
Thank
then
you.
we have the May financial reports. Again, our routine monthly reports. It shows that departments are spending a lot more of their budget as we get closer to year end, but with the amendment that we're bringing in next week, everyone should be in good shape for the year.
Any questions on the financial report?
News, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thanks, Rachel. All right, now we're on to other business. Anybody up here have any other business?
I do have one thing, although I hate reporting it to just three of you, but I'll go ahead. Basically, I just wanted to share with you, I put it on your desk when we arrived this evening, interestingly, Mr. Cross brought it up. But this is about the 386 plan that the governor put in his budget this year. As you know, I feel like Gallatin is very fortunate that this was made a priority project. I think Senator Farrell Hale helped us substantially. Within the last couple of years, we really pressed through our Community Development Infrastructure Committee that, this was a make or break for the whole net corridor. Remember, the net corridor is that northern bypass that's going to connect back into 31 and 4-lane it up to the Kentucky line. And so if we didn't have a plan for this piece of it, we weren't ever going to get the rest of it. And so Senator Hale helped us expedite a study and create a conceptual plan that we are, working with, and a dollar estimate. The county last night in their budget meeting, if you were listening like I was, they did commit $10 million to it. That leaves us with an estimated cost of $7.85. I told Commissioner Deggs that, I felt certain that this was a good thing for the city of Gallatin and felt like we would have the commitment, to budget those dollars over the coming years. It's not something we have to come up with today. The county did go ahead and dedicate those funds. We're certainly going to work through the MPO process and other grant opportunities to try and create some some opportunities where we don't have to generate that full 0.78 from our local budget, and we'll get some of that reduced down, but that would be our maximum impact, and that would be over a period of several years. We can kind of pay it along the way for design and
They give
right-of-way
us any
acquisition.
timeline on how quickly this will be done?
We'll know, they are going to be sending us a project agreement when they get that created, and that will give us a better idea, and then you can figure it'll go a little bit slower than that.
Yeah.
I don't know if Mr. Tuttle wants to add anything, or if you think I sufficiently said what I need to say this evening. Okay, good. So, anyway, I think it's great news. I'm excited that we got some really favorable movement from TDOT for something that's very, very valuable, not just to the city of Gallatin, but to the entire Sumner County area. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Anything else?
What about this?
What about the mural?
This mural? Okay.
Oh,
Hey, Councilman Alexander's out there.
John D.
Councilman Alexander.
Hey, Craig, I got one thing to say right quick. Guys, y'all remember last week when I brought up a Cinco issue in Kennesaw Farms? Okay, would somebody please call Tanya Jackson? She still texts me every day saying nobody's even told her what's going on or what to expect.
We have another business item that's going to need a vote.
Will y'all? Or have you already contacted her?
So myself, Lance Wagner, some other engineering folks have all spoken with her. It's on private property. It's not in the right of way. We do have some road repairs in that general area that we're gonna be doing, but, the sinkhole is, it's on private property. We have, utilities has been out to make sure there was no water leaks, no sewer leaks, everything's good, so, unfortunately, it's on private property and it's
I was just
not our
making a
burden.
statement, she keeps texting me.
Yes, sir. We have, like I said, there's been multiple departments that's spoken with her, and trying to lead her in the right direction.
Thank you.
Okay, now the mural. We voting on this?
Motion approved.
All right, we got a second.
We need to present it. Hey, I
Let's-
want
let's present it,
Tell
please.
you about it. I think it's exciting. Mr. Hinchcliffe, are you going to present it, or am I, or?
Briefly.
He draw it?
Councilman Alexander
No,
has
he did
to
not.
leave, but let's briefly present it so that we've followed the procedure.
Yes, we received a request for a mural. This is property just directly behind our parking lot here. You've got the address there and a picture of it. It's a Klein Haynes property. I checked out the artist. He's spending $10,000 for this mural. It's a photo of a representation of local plants. And it's actually very beautiful, and the artist does a lot of work in Nashville that's very respectable.
Great. All right, we got a motion and a second.
Where's it located?
You've got the address on that sheet, on the
Just
application?
for the record, we need it for the record.
115 West Franklin Street.
Okay. All right, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? It looks great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Department heads.
You, James Fenton, Economic Development, and I'd received questions from members of this body regarding the Meta site and things that are occurring out there, so I wanted to answer some of those. And first, apparently there'd been some misinformation saying that Meta had acquired some of their property for pennies on the dollar. I just want to remind you that one of the farms in question, they paid above appraised value for, and local landowners received more than $18 million for their property out there. There was also a question about the amount of taxes that were paid. At the completion of the first two buildings, Meta will be the largest revenue stream in the county, and with the completion of their next planned building, which was just recently announced, that'll jump to $2.45 million annually. Previously, of course, all of that property was in the Greenbelt, and the county, it was all in the county and in the Greenbelt, and the county received minimal dollars. And I'm sure you're familiar with state law, but it needs to be pointed out that just as with any commercial, industrial, or residential building, it's not until a certificate of occupancy is received that it goes on the tax roll. So, and that's embedded in state law, and that's not something we can or should try to circumvent. I also wanted to remind you that there was no burden that was put on taxpayers. That's something that had been put out there for infrastructure. Meta had invested $8.4 million in our water and sewer to ensure that it did not negatively impact our resources. Additionally, they paid $4 million roughly for the extension of Gateway Drive, which was a needed second entrance into our industrial park for safety. And they're paying $400,000 a year for 6 years for permitting and inspection fees. Currently, there are 1,700 construction workers out there, and yes, there's been some complaints about traffic. We made them aware of that, and they made some major adjustments earlier this week, which has taken care of a majority of those problems, and they're still keeping their eye on things. They'll monitor that. But they have 1,700 workers out there on site, and when finished, they'll employ at least 100 operational personnel, with up to 150 or so subcontractors on a daily basis. And the press release that went out last week mentioned 30 employees. So by supporting their data center with 100% renewable energy, Meta is creating and investing in their $111 million in the state. And in some of those areas where they've invested those funds, that's where those additional 30 employees are going to be. So, and there's 700 construction workers helping to put all that together. So Meta's presence in this state means currently about 2,400 construction workers, and there'll be 130 plus full-time and 100, and plus the subcontractors that are in and out. And those are kind of the nuts and bolts, but I also wanted to make sure we touched on a couple of other things here. And that is that Meta has invested more than $100,000 to improve internet access and connect students to technology one-on-one to their tools here in the county. For the schools, they've invested in VEX Robotics, computer coding camps for students. They worked with Vol State to offer need and merit-based scholarships to local women working to complete their degrees. And they've also invested in a financial literacy program for Gallatin High School girls. Also working with Vol State, Meta created what's called a hard hat in hand program, training people that want to go into the construction industry. And they've already graduated their first cohort, and some of those folks have been hired. Their contractors, DPR and Rosenden, have donated countless hours of in-kind work around the city. Shalom Zone, Habitat for Humanity, as well as buying and distributing hundreds of free meals. So all of that together, you put those 1,700 construction workers, you have all seen the impact they've had on the city as far as our sales tax collections are concerned and our hotel, motel tax collections. Caterers and food trucks are on site almost daily providing food for them. Some local businesses have reported doing $200,000 a month or more in business with them. And contractors on the Meta site have leased hundreds of thousands of square feet of warehouse space, so benefiting a lot of local businesses. And just wanted to be known that when the campus is finished, there will be hundreds of acres that will be left in agricultural land, as well as 100 acres plus as a pollinator garden for us.
They're doing a pollinator garden, and they're also doing a native grassland preservation project. So that's particularly meaningful to me.
I hope I've answered your questions. If there are any others, please just reach out to me. I'll be glad to.
Keep posting that,
All right.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
because we can all share that.
Any other department heads? Any department heads? If not, I entertain a motion.
Motion adjourn.
Can we
Second.
vote? I guess we can adjourn.
I guess
since
we're
it's the end of the
adjourned.
agenda.
Yeah.